In the serene town of Berkeley Springs, West Virginia, life moves at a gentle pace. But on a spring day in 2019, that tranquility was shattered by the disappearance of a bright young girl named Riley Crossman. What began as a missing person case would unravel into a chilling tale of betrayal, hidden motives, and forensic clues that pointed to the unimaginable: a murder within the family home. This is the story of how science and determination brought justice to Riley Crossman. Riley Crossman was just 15 years old, a freshman at Berkeley Springs High School. Described by those who knew her as kind-hearted and vibrant, Riley was an active cheerleader, with dreams stretching far beyond her small town. She lived with her mother, Chantal Oakley, in a modest home on Greenway Drive. Chantal worked hard to provide for her daughter, and in recent years, she had started dating a man named Andy Macaulay Jr., a 41-year-old construction worker. Macaulay had moved in with them, blending into their daily lives, but beneath the surface, tensions simmered. On the evening of May 7th, 2019, Riley was in her room, winding down after a typical day. She sent a text message to her boyfriend that would later become a haunting piece of evidence. "Andy's in my room. I'm scared." The message was time-stamped around 10:30 p.m. Riley's boyfriend, concerned but unsure, responded, but no further text came from Riley that night. The next morning, May 8th, Chantal Oakley woke up and went about her routine. She noticed Riley's bedroom door was closed and assumed her daughter had already left for school, as Riley often walked there early to meet friends. Chantal headed to work, but by mid-morning, the school contacted her. Riley was absent. Alarmed, Chantal rushed home, searched the house, and called Riley's father, Lance Crossman. Together, they scoured the neighborhood, but there was no sign of the teenager. By afternoon, Chantal dialed 911 to report her daughter missing. The Morgan County Sheriff's Office sprang into action. Sheriff K.C. Borer led the investigation, enlisting help from the West Virginia State Police, the FBI's Crimes Against Children Unit, and local volunteers. Flyers with Riley's photo, her warm smile, and reddish-brown hair were distributed across Berkeley Springs and beyond. Divers searched nearby rivers, and K-9 units combed the forests. Days turned into a week with no leads. Chantal Oakley clung to hope, telling reporters, "Riley is my everything. We just want her home safe." But as investigators dug deeper, attention turned to those closest to Riley. Andy Macaulay, Chantal's boyfriend, was interviewed multiple times. He claimed he had last seen Riley the evening before her disappearance and insisted he had no idea where she was. Macaulay mentioned he had driven his green Dodge work truck to a construction site in Hedgesville that morning, a route that took him near Tuscarora Pike. His statements, however, were inconsistent. Details about his timeline and activities shifted with each retelling. A search warrant allowed detectives to examine the family home. In Riley's bedroom, they collected bedding that appeared unremarkable at first glance, but forensic testing would reveal more. Luminol tests detected traces of blood on the sheets, and DNA analysis confirmed it belonged to Riley, mixed with saliva, suggesting a struggle or suffocation. Outside, Macaulay's work truck caught their eye. The bed of the truck had fresh splatters of drywall mud from his job site, but one rectangular area was suspiciously clean, as if something had been placed there to block the splatter. On May 16th, 2019, 8 days after Riley vanished, officers from the West Virginia Division of Natural Resources made a grim discovery while patrolling a remote embankment along Tuscarora Pike in Berkeley County. There, partially hidden in the underbrush, was a decomposed body wrapped in trash bags. Dental records and DNA quickly confirmed it was Riley Crossman. The body showed signs of having been transported. Drywall mud clung to her right shoulder and foot, matching the material from Macaulay's job. The autopsy was conducted by Deputy Chief Medical Examiner Dr. Piotr Kubicek at the State Lab in Charleston. Due to advanced decomposition, Riley had been exposed to the elements for over a week. The exact cause of death could not be pinpointed. No obvious wounds from a weapon were found, and toxicology reports showed no drugs or poisons. However, the medical examiner ruled the death a homicide by unspecified means, consistent with asphyxiation or smothering. The position of the body and lack of defensive wounds suggested she may have been attacked in a place she felt safe, like her own bed. Forensic experts turned to the physical evidence. Soil and mud analysis linked the residue on Riley's body directly to the drywall compound in Macaulay's truck. Microscopic comparison under electron microscopes showed identical chemical compositions: calcium sulfate, dihydrate, with trace additives unique to the brand used at his site. Cell site data from Macaulay's phone placed him near the disposal site on the morning of May 8th, contradicting his initial alibi. Additionally, surveillance footage from a nearby gas station showed his green truck heading toward Tuscarora Pike that day. Armed with this damning evidence, investigators confronted Macaulay. His stories crumbled. He admitted to arguments with Riley but denied harming her. Yet the text message from Riley's phone, "Andy's in my room, I'm scared," painted a different picture. Prosecutors theorized that Macaulay entered her room that night, perhaps fueled by resentment or an unknown motive, and suffocated her with a pillow before disposing of her body en route to work. On May 17, 2019, Andy Macaulay was arrested and charged with first-degree murder, concealment of a deceased human body, and death of a child by a custodian through child abuse. The community reeled. Hundreds attended a vigil for Riley, lighting candles and sharing stories of her infectious laugh. The trial began in late September 2021 in Morgan County Circuit Court, delayed briefly by a COVID-19 exposure. Prosecutor Dan James presented a meticulous case, calling over 30 witnesses, including forensic experts, Riley's boyfriend, and Chantel Oakley. The text message was read aloud, sending chills through the courtroom. Dr. Kubicek testified about the autopsy, emphasizing that while decomposition obscured details, the evidence pointed to homicide. A forensic anthropologist explained how the drywall mud transfer occurred post-mortem, indicating transportation. The defense, led by attorney Andy Arnold, argued reasonable doubt. They pointed out that 5 other people had access to the home that night, questioned the lack of a definitive cause of death, and claimed no motive existed. Macaulay had no prior violent history. But the prosecution countered with Macaulay's inconsistent statements and the physical evidence, painting him as a man who snapped in a moment of rage. After 7 days of testimony, the jury deliberated for just over 3 hours. On October 5th, 2021, they returned a verdict: guilty on all counts, including first-degree murder, with no recommendation for mercy. Macaulay showed no emotion as the words echoed in the court. At sentencing on November 4th, 2021, emotions ran high. Chantel Oakley, heartbroken, addressed the court. "Riley was kind and amazing. Andy took that all away from us." Prosecutor James urged the maximum penalty, highlighting the betrayal of trust. Judge Deborah McLaughlin imposed life without parole for the murder, plus consecutive sentences for the other charges. Effectively, 2 life terms. In the end, forensic science, from DNA on bed sheets to mud particles in a truck bed, sealed Andy Macaulay's fate. Riley Crossman's story serves as a stark reminder that evil can lurk in the most familiar places. Thanks to dedicated investigators and unyielding evidence, justice was served. But for those who loved Riley, the pain endures. In Berkeley Springs, her memory lives on, a beacon of light in the shadow of tragedy. If you have thoughts on this case or suggestions for future episodes, drop them in the comments below. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more true crime content. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next video.